story of Back to the Future happened like this. After Used Cars, we wrote Back to the Future. And there was that 3-year span where I couldn't get a job directing. Or I wasn't offered anything that I wanted to direct until Romancing the Stone came along. I have a stack of rejection letters from everybody, every studio in town, except one guy, and that was Steven, who read it and said, yeah, I'll make this. And at the time, he had produced my first 2 movies, which were failures at the box office. So I said, Steven, if you produce this movie and this one doesn't perform, my career will probably be over. And he said, yeah, you're probably right. So he understood that completely. He said, because then I said, I'll be perceived as a guy who can only make a movie if you produce it. So then after I made Romancing the Stone, and then everybody who had rejected Back to the Future wanted to make Back to the Future. So I felt that it was only appropriate to take it to the one guy who had faith in it from the beginning. By this time, Steven's name had become synonymous with a certain type of film. I mean, it had become a brand name. And to have him associated with Back to the Future, in my opinion, was like a perfect fit. I was put in a position when that movie, a position that I learned a lesson in a hard way, which was that I was given an ultimatum by the studio that if the movie couldn't be delivered by a certain release date, they didn't want to make it. And my first choice for the part of Marty McFly was Michael J., but I couldn't get him out of his TV show on hiatus in enough time to make the film and make the release date. So I cast Eric Stoltz, who I thought was going to be, I thought he was going to be right in the part. And I assembled all the footage, and I looked at it that I had shot after shooting like 3 or 4 weeks. And I realized that I had made a tremendous, tremendous error in judgment. And, Eric's a wonderful actor, but wasn't comfortable doing this type of comedy. You can't make decisions for the wrong reasons. You can never make creative decisions because of corporate reasons. Because somebody's gonna get hurt. It's either gonna be your movie or, in this case, an actor. Or, it's always the tail wagging the dog. And so then we went back and reshot the scenes that we had shot with Eric and put Michael in the movie.
Does your mom know about tomorrow night?
Oh, get out of town. My mom thinks I'm going camping with the guys. Well, Jennifer, my mother would freak out if she knew I was going up there with you, and I get the standard lecture about how she never did that kind of stuff when she was a kid. I mean, look, I think the woman was born a nun.
She's just trying to keep you respectable.
Well, she's not doing a very good job.
Terrible.
Save the clock tower! Save the clock tower! Mayor Wilson is sponsoring an initiative to replace that clock. 30 years ago, lightning struck that clock tower, and the clock hasn't run since. We at the Hill Valley Preservation Society think it should be preserved exactly the way it is, as part of our history and heritage.
There you go, lady. There's a quarter.
Thank you. Don't forget to take a flyer.
Right.
Save the clock tower!
Where were we?
Right about here.
Jennifer!
Well, casting is an interesting thing because it's it's like you just know it. And in the case of Chris Lloyd, it was he walked in, and that was it. And, he's very shy, and he doesn't, like in an interview, I mean, he just, doesn't say much, but he just looked, I can't describe it. He came in, and he was the guy.
I'm going to read your thoughts. Let's see now, you come here from a great distance?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't tell me. You want me to buy a subscription to the Saturday Evening Post?
No.
Not a word now. Quiet. Donations. You want me to make a donation to the Coast Guard Youth Auxiliary?
Doc, I'm from the future. I came here in a time machine that you invented. Now I need your help to get back to the year 1985.
Do you know what this means? It means that this damn thing doesn't work at all.
There aren't that many special effects in the first Back to the Future. There's only 30 shots, and most of them are lightning. And but because of the subject and because of the energy and the story, it's considered to be this giant special effects movie. But in fact, the time machine only travels through time twice in the whole movie, and and all of the optical effect shots are mainly lightning bolts and things like that. I mean, so it is not my most. I mean, it isn't my most special effect movie. I think there's more special effects in Romancing the Stone, actually.
I think he is extremely intelligent. I think that he understands human nature, and he's also a kid at heart. And he never let that go. He's never, ever let the child in him go. And although Bob is an adult, Bob has never grown up. And I think that's one of his greatest assets.
With the 1988 release of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Zemeckis topped himself once again. The film passed the $350 million mark and became the top-grossing film of 1988. For this achievement, Zemeckis was honored with an award from the Directors Guild of America, and actor Bob Hoskins received a Golden Globe nomination as Best Actor.
I always felt that there was a problem with suspension of disbelief. And then I read the screenplay, and the inspired idea in the screenplay is in the first 3 pages, where the cartoon character steps out of a cartoon, and we realize that it slowly, visually, takes us into this unbelievable world where cartoon characters interact with human characters. And I said, now that I get. And then Steven was incredibly instrumental, because he is the only guy on the planet who was able to get all the competing cartoon characters from all the competing studios in one movie.
And from the smell of him, I'd say it was the booze talking. No matter, the rabbit won't get far. My men will find him. Weasels. Yes, I find I have a special gift for the work.
All right, you mugs, fall out.
Did you find the rabbit?
Don't worry, Judge. We got the informants all over the city. We'll find them.
You wouldn't have any idea where the rabbit might be, Mr. Valiant?
Have you tried Walla Walla? Cocomanda? I hear Kokomo's very nice this time of the year.
The trick to the illusion in Roger Rabbit is not the mechanics or the technique. What it was the believing in the live-action actors, that the cartoon character's there. Basically, Bob Hoskins was always acting for 2, and that was that's what I think made the real illusion work.
Roger, I know all this seems pretty painful now, but you'll find someone new, won't he, Mr. Valiant?
Yeah, sure. Good-looking guy like that, the Danes will be breaking his door down.
Dames? What dames? Just the only one for me. You'll see. We'll ride above this piddling picadillo. We're gonna be happy again. You got that? Happy. T-P-P-I.
Well, at least you took it well.
You know, animators are like actors. I mean, so for 3 years you have to direct animators. I mean, they just don't. They perform, but they do it one frame at a time, and they do it through their pencil. You would give direction, and then 4 weeks later, you'd see a pencil test. Then you'd go back to the animator and you refine the performance, and then 4 weeks later, the change would come back, and the change would come back. So it's like watching paint dry.
Mark, action.
Marty! You've got to come back with me. Where? Back to the future.
1989 and 1990 brought the releases of Back to the Future 2 and Back to the Future 3. During the filming of Back to the Future 3, Zemeckis commuted over 350 miles each day to oversee the editing of Back to the Future 2. The effort paid off. In its opening weekend, Back to the Future 2 took in a staggering $47 million and went on to earn a worldwide gross of well over $300 million.
Everyone thought we had designed the end of the movie for a sequel, which we did it as a joke. And I can understand why everyone thinks that way, but we just we were just holding on for dear life. We just wanted the movie to open, let alone think about a sequel. Everyone made this assumption that this was all by grand design, and it wasn't. The fact that, Marty and the Doc fly off at the end, we thought it was just a good button for the end of the movie. And Bob Gale and I looked at each other and we said, we can do something that you could never do under any other circumstance. We can go into the first movie from another point of view and make it integral to the story of the second sequel, because it gave you exactly, in my opinion, what a sequel is supposed to deliver. The same movie, but different. That's what audiences want in a sequel. The same movie, but different. And then what we really wanted to get to was part 3, because part 3 was like the perfect sequel, but in the West. So we wrote this elaborate screenplay, and the budget was astronomical. And we were in a meeting with Sid Sheinberg here at Universal, who said, I am not going to be, responsible for making the most expensive film in the history, of mankind. And I believe Bob Gale said, well, why don't we just cut the screenplay in half and make it into 2 movies? And, to Sid's credit, he thought about it. He said, that's either the most brilliant or the craziest idea. And he said, why not?
Hey, stop! Little girl, stop! Look, I need to borrow your hoverboard.
Where is he?
Here.
There! He's on a hoverboard!
I loved riding horses. I loved the challenge of getting on a horse and convincing it to ride up to the back of a train and putting out my hand and touching it.
When you get next to a horse and you realize, if my actor falls off that horse and sprains his thumb, I have to shut this movie down. It's not, it's not like you're not worried about very serious injuries, but falling off a horse will create an injury serious enough to shut a movie down.
I trained on one horse, and then the day of the stunt, the day that I had to ride up to the back of the train and touch it, the man who'd been working with me said, try this horse, a completely different horse. And I got on it, and I suddenly knew that was the right horse, not the one I'd been working on for 2 months.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that stuff done. That was that was very, very terrifying for me.
We were talking about my character after it was all over, and we were somehow we were 2/3 of the way through the movie. I can't remember. Somebody was talking about money, or somehow we talked about my deal or something, which was far less than what I'm about to say. And he said, "Mary, I only wanted you for the part. I never had a second choice for the part. You could have asked $2 million, and we would have paid you $2 million for this part," which was, believe me, so far away from what I got paid. And I was like, "Thanks a lot, Bob. Thanks for telling me now."
Hey, McFly! Thought I done told you never to come in. Hey, you ain't Seamus McFly. You look like him, though. Especially with that dog ugly hat. You kin to that, hey, barber? What's your name, dude?
Mart Eastwood. Clint Eastwood.
I guess there's a kind of confidence in what Bob does, a kind of risk-taking that I can be very adverse to as a director. And watching him take these enormous chances, to walk onto a set and say, this scene is going to be magic hour, meaning we have about 10 minutes to get it in. But there's also going to be, 20 telescopes, giant 150-foot telescopes turning at the same time. And the camera's going to be on this enormous sort of computerized, crane head. And it's going to be inside a moving vehicle while it's raining. And those are the kinds of things that I just don't, there's a side of me that doesn't have the confidence to make those choices. And Bob makes them without ever blinking.
I shall always... In 1992, Zemeckis focused his directorial skills on a topic familiar to us all, our constant obsession with aging. In a black comedy, aptly titled Death Becomes Her, stars Meryl Streep, Goldie Hawn, and Bruce Willis find themselves in an ego-driven quest for eternal youth that goes wickedly awry. Meryl Streep received a Golden Globe Best Actress nomination for her performance as Madeline Ashton.
The problem here's the problem with black comedies in this country, in America, as opposed to Europe, for example. And people love black comedies, but they will never admit it, and that it's a guilty pleasure. So here you're sitting in a theater, and people are howling and screaming and laughing, and then the scores come back, and they're all like average, below average, because people, they say, well, I'm not going to say this was excellent, I'll say it was okay. It's, because, well, I can't admit that I was laughing at such despicable subject matter or characters. So, you can't generate word of mouth when you do a black comedy because everyone is like ashamed to admit that they, really thought it was funny.
Okay, lady, listen up. You have the right to remain silent. If you give up the right to remain silent, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to speak. Nuts. To have the attorney present during the questioning. You so desire cannot afford one. Come on, get her out.
And action.
Please, 11:10, please. Helen, it's me, Ernest Medfield. I did it. I didn't think I'd be able to do it, but I did it. I pushed her down the stairs, and she's absolutely stone cold.
Oh, I didn't have to convince Bruce at all. Bruce wanted to do it. He wanted to do it so badly. I mean, I was more concerned that Bruce was, too buff and too good looking. That was my concern. The thing that's great about Bruce is that he is an actor. Vanity and stardom and whatever never gets in the way. It's like what the guy is supposed to be. First day we went in to do his wardrobe fittings, you know, well, it's not a fitting actually. I go and see like these concepts with the actor, and Bruce modeled everything lying on the floor like he was passed out, because he said, well, that's what the guy's a drunk, you know, he's going to be, so he put on a sport coat and he'd lie on the floor like in a heap and say, how's it look, you know, and I said, you know, this is going to be great, this is going to be fun working with Bruce, it's great.
Dr. Menville.
Is this an angel I see before me?
Dr. Menville, you're so cute.
Not you, Rose. Oh. Poor vodka.
You know, I always tease Meryl, and when we had to do this scene where she stretches her head up, we had two hand doubles that were her hand that put their hands in the sleeves of her dress, and she's, you know, crunched down on an apple box, and then she mimed this action, and these two hands went up with it because the shoulders had to see the arms had to come out where the shoulders really were, but to get her face lower, she had to lower her real shoulders. So, you know, as we were doing this, and it was incredibly technical, I'd say, you know, Meryl, just remember that, you know, with all those Academy Awards you've won and all those tremendous performances, this is the clip that will kick off, you know, your AFI Life Achievement Award ceremony.
Speaking of which, as a friend, some advice. I would stay out of a bathing suit for a while. At least a two-piece. Or if I...
Damn, I just fixed this.
On guard, bitch.
Anybody got a toothpick? I got some stuff in my teeth from that beef jerky I was eating. How's my hair look?
And of course, Goldie in the fat suit was a riot, because this thing was made out of silicone, you know, and it looked really, and it was great because it had big, heavy arms. I mean, what we did with that, which was so great, is that we had her in short sleeves, which really created the illusion. I mean, it was beautifully sculpted, but it weighed like, I don't know how many, you know, 150 pounds or something, and of course, Goldie had to wear it like, you know, the weight was on her shoulder. It was just like a backpack. I mean, you know, she stepped into it. She had like a harness on underneath. And of course, she was sweltering, so, you know, we had you know, we had to cut a hole in the back and stick an air conditioner in there. You know, she was carrying around like an air conditioner, like, you know, an astronaut does, you know, with a tube kind of going in her back like a tail, you know. We had built this motion control camera system for Back to the Future 2. So we used that same motion control system, but now we started to introduce the computer imagery, and it was, I believe, the first time that the computer ever generated human skin. Meryl, who acted backwards with a blue bag over her head, right? And then she had to do all the acting from the neck up on a blue screen stage 4 months later. And then they built a sculpture of her twisted neck and scanned it into the computer to blend the two pieces together.
No, it's very difficult to determine time of death within a few hours. It's not really an exact science.
Ernest.
It's not an exact...
Ernest. Ernest! You pushed me down the stairs.
Stay away from me!
You bet I will, animal, psycho,
Don't come near me!
wife, pusher.
Don't come near me or follow me! Don't come near me or follow me or talk to me!
I don't intend to.
Forrest. I never thanked you for saving my life.
After such a successful early career, it seemed impossible that Zemeckis could top himself again. But that's just what he did with the 1994 release of Forrest Gump, starring Tom Hanks, Robin Wright, Michael T. Williamson, Gary Sinise, and Sally Field. The only way to describe the film is to quote film critic Roger Ebert from his 1994 review. Ebert wrote, quote, "I've never met anyone like Forrest Gump in a movie before, and for that matter, I've never seen a movie quite like Forrest Gump," end quote. Tom Hanks won both an Oscar and a Golden Globe Award for his performance as Forrest, and the film was awarded an Oscar for Best Picture.
He's very true to his heart. He knows what he sees is what he believes. And if it's not something to be believed, it can't exist, you know? And it's a very childlike quality. It's great to be able to maintain that as an adult, you know? Being in touch with innocence, and also he's very smart. And those two together, I don't know, it's a pretty good package.
And Bob is always smiling. Bob's always like, and I'm sitting there usually with my finger in my eye and, you know, with my hands around a cup of coffee because I'm always saying, Bob, is any of this working? I mean, is any of this stuff making sense? And Bob would say to me, who knows? I mean, you know, but honestly, Bob, I mean, when the lady came in, do you feel as though we're actually having a conversation, or is it just me picking? I mean, is it going to be like episodic, or is it going to be like a true connection between these people? I don't know. It's a minefield, Tom. It's a friggin' minefield. Who knows? We can kill ourselves any given day on a movie like this. And I think, oddly enough, he gets this perverse enjoyment out of that very knowledge.
I remember distinctly reading the screenplay and not being able to, Eric Roth's screenplay, and not being able to stop reading it. I wanted to find out, the true suspense of the movie was to find out what was going to happen to this character. And I couldn't stop reading it. And whenever that happens, I know that's a major signal, you know, that's a pretty good piece of material.
It was, I think, for myself, timed so perfectly for where I was as far as my craft goes, because I needed to be in a position where it was so sink or swim that I was going to either get my butt kicked or I was going to do a good job. And to be in that position with Bob, especially after the type of film that Philadelphia was, in which that was a completely different sort of, a different sort of emotional journey that I was on as an actor, but much more, Philadelphia was so internal. Philadelphia was so much myself alone in a trailer thinking about stuff. And on the other side of it, Forrest Gump was about being outdoors, dealing with the elements and looking at all and relating to all these other peoples in a very specific way.
You know, even living or dead, I mean, I can't think of anyone who could do it as good as Tom did. I can't think of anyone. Possibly Henry Fonda would have done something interesting with it. But who knows? I don't think it would have been as good as Tom. I don't think it would have been as perfect as Tom.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Those must be comfortable shoes. I bet you could walk all day in shoes like that and not feel a thing. I wish I had shoes like that.
My feet hurt.
Mom always said there's an awful lot you can tell about a person by their shoes. Where they going, where they been. I've worn lots of shoes.
Vocally, it was a huge difficulty because Forrest had to have a way of talking. And it had to be a very, It had to be an organic way of speaking. I couldn't make arbitrary decisions and say, okay, this is how he's going to talk.
What Tom and I knew we didn't want to do, have him walking around with an affected Southern accent. I mean, that just, you know, we just didn't want that. We knew that that wouldn't be, Alabama accent, that just wouldn't work.
And luckily, young Michael, who played young Forrest Gump, had this incredibly distinctive way of speaking. And rather than try to come up with something and make him speak the same way, we said, well, look, this is the greatest template we have in the world. I'll just, you know, let me follow this guy's lead as opposed to the other way around.
Are you stupid or something?
I'm as stupid as stupid does.
I'm Jenny.
I'm Forrest Gump.
From that day on, we was always together. Jenny and me was like peas and carrots.
The most challenging thing about the role was being able to tie Bubba into Forrest spiritually. The character was written as a real strong guy who would sort of take Forrest under his wing and watch out for him. That was the original Bubba. And I didn't think that was the strongest choice. I thought that Bubba should be like 2 or 3 teaspoons smarter than Forrest, but have a golden heart just like Forrest, so that they were somewhat similar, yet still different. And Bob supported me. He explained to us that he wanted something in this movie to touch every single person in the world. He wanted to touch every emotion that people have in common. And he did that. He achieved that.
Sit down if you want to.
I didn't know who I might meet or what they might ask.
You ever been on a real shrimp boat?
No, but I've been on a real big boat.
I'm talking about a shrimp catching boat. I've been working on shrimp boats all my life. I started out on my uncle's boat. That's my mama's brother. When I was about maybe 9. I was just looking into buying a boat of my own and got drafted. My given name is Benjamin Buford Blue. People call me Bubba. Just like one of them old redneck boys. Can you believe that?
My name's Forrest Gump. People call me Forrest Gump.
I just believe with anybody, you know, their soul is going into that script. And it's going to show, it's going to shine. And that Bob is that way. He's so heartfelt. He's so full of heart. And that movie had that. Because of him, I think.
Will you marry me? I'd make a good husband, Jenny.
You would, Forrest.
But you won't marry me.
You don't want to marry me.
Why don't you love me, Jenny? I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is.
On Friday night, we were shooting the scene in the bar New Year's Eve, me and Lieutenant Dan. I'm getting the flu, I announced to everybody who cared. So I get up at 5:30 in the morning and get in the car and sleep in the back of the car as we drive out to East LA College in order to shoot this stuff. And I got every AD and every driver is getting me echinacea and tea and honey and hot water, and it's that kind of flu where essentially you want to curl up in a ball under an Afghan and sleep. That's all you really want to do. But I had to go off and make this movie with Bob.
Well, this was the day that he had to run 100 yards from one end of the football field to the other. And he came to me and he said,
hi, Bob. Hi, Bob. And Bob looks at me and says, hey, man, how you doing? I said, I'm not doing too well, Bob. Oh, what's the matter? Are you sick?
You know, I don't know, it was in the middle of the winter solstice, which meant we had, 6 hours of light or something. I mean, it was like, and I had all these VistaVision cameras. I had 7 cameras, and I had to do in one 6-hour period of time, move these 2,000 people to all these different sections of the stadium to make it look like it was, a full stadium.
You got the flu, huh? Oh, that's too bad, because you got a shitload of running you have to do today.
that was how I said good morning that morning.
And sure enough, for the rest of the day, I'm in my full football uniform, and I'm running my butt off up and down the sidelines there as old number 44, Forrest Gump.
Based on the novel of the same name by Carl Sagan, with a screenplay by Carl Sagan and Ann Droyan. The film starred Jodie Foster, Matthew McConaughey, James Woods, John Hurt, Tom Skerritt, and Angela Bassett. It was one of the most awaited films of 1997 and proved an enormous success worldwide.
I mean this as a compliment to Bob and in no way to denigrate anybody else in the business, but it's hard to imagine anyone else making this film other than Bob Zemeckis. Because Bob has a sense of hope, I think, in his work. There's always a sense of hope, but not a sentimental sense of it. I mean, a very hard, questioning, scientific, very rational approach to the idea of, if we're not alone, what is our place in the universe? How do we share it with others? How do we share the best of ourselves with ourselves? And Bob's sense of faith in the human race is very much evident.
What was exciting about it when I read it was I said, wow, look at this. This is what would really happen. It isn't about aliens and, you know, it never is about the aliens. It's all about what happens here and how everybody wanted to own it. I mean, and this is what I believe would really happen. And of course I saw the whole thing as this metaphor for, you know, religion and spirituality and questions and unanswerable questions, which, you know, we feel compelled to answer, both, you know, spiritually and scientifically, where, in my opinion, that spirituality and science are totally compatible and that they don't have to be.
Well, I think the great thing about Bob is that he has a really simple storytelling approach to things. And I think that's a great gift in filmmaking, you know, is to be able to take this huge idea and to really boil it down to the most important things. And the idea of trying to translate that big, beautiful, romantic idea of humanity and their relationship to the cosmos, you know, something that I've thought a lot about as the years have gone on, especially as I've gotten older. And I got hooked onto it, and in an earlier draft of the screenplay. And then the film, you know, had all sorts of problems getting started. Then Bob came on, and he really made the whole thing make sense.
Bob Zemeckis is like I've often described him as like a beautiful big rose that just continues to open and open and open. When you're working with him, he's coming up with ideas all the time. He's not hard and fast on any preconception or any pre-notion that he has about how this should go. If the clouds part and the sun comes down, that's what he's going to use, even if it's written to be a rainy day. And he's always looking for these opportunities from all of us. And you feel very much a contributor to a significant piece.
Away from a lengthy illness before the filmmakers were able to complete the production.
Well, you know, it's tremendously sad that, you know, he passed away before the film was finished. And I mean, I was really looking forward to those last weeks of Carl looking at the movie and, you know, duking it out with him as far as what, you know, what was going to stay in and what wasn't going to stay in. But he did see most of it. I mean, you know, 3/4 of the film was shot before he passed away, and he was involved very closely, and he saw dailies, and he came to the set a couple times, and even though he was very ill at the time, and made notes on all the script revisions, you know, to the very end. You know, every time we rewrote something, it always went to Carl for him to check the science and make sure we were doing it all right.
We all sat down and said, you know, we really have to make sure that Carl is proud of this, and that he doesn't feel somehow that we've taken his vision and changed it to something else.
Well, every great film director is unique and very special. Again, it gets back to that thing I said earlier about the creative process. Inherent in the creative process is this ability to continually take chances, risks, and challenge yourself constantly. And he somehow or another has been able to find this rhythm, so it's simpatico with the rhythm of a good deal of people out in an audience. So it's a balance that he's found about being as sweet a guy as he is and as challenging a creator as he is.
I don't have a plan for this, but I hope that I just hope that my body of work is always one of stretching and not ever becoming one that I don't ever want to go back over any familiar territory. Just trying to always try different things, and I don't mean that in terms of spectacle and effects and things. I just talk about, you know, trying to do interesting stories and present interesting characters, and if there's a way to create you know, a really spectacular illusion around, you know, along the way, I'll do that too.